makes a good camera? Is it the build quality? Is it the images it can produce? Maybe it's features. Its price? Or maybe it's just the feeling that you get while using it. Depending on how you answer these questions, I think I could guess as to whether or not you would like the Fujifilm X100, a camera that has a tremendous amount of style, but lacks a tremendous amount of features that we as photographers take for granted. Is the Fujifilm X100 a good camera, even a decade plus after its initial release? The answer to that question surprised me. Let's take a look. If you were simply to read out the specs for this camera, it admittedly would be very hard to get excited about it nowadays. The original Fujifilm X100 has a 12 megapixel CMOS APS-C size sensor, so don't expect to be doing too much cropping with this camera. It also comes with a 23mm fixed f2 lens, which is about the equivalent of a 35mm on full-frame cameras. It also has a 2.8-inch non-flippy, non-touch screen. So what you see here really is what you get. It does not move at all. In addition to that, this camera is also missing a fair amount of other features. It has no kind of in-body stabilization. It has no kind of a mic jack because yes, this technically does shoot video. And finally, for Fujifilm fans, it lacks a lot of Fujifilm's film simulations. So those kind of looks that you can put to make your camera look like old film stocks, this camera is missing a lot of them. It still has some of your standard ones like classic chrome, but it's missing a lot of the newer ones, which for some people is a big deal with these cameras. Now that sounds pretty negative, but what do people, myself included, still love about this camera, even 12 years later? There are a few things that jump out to me immediately, the first of which has to be the build and the feel of this camera. There's a reason why, even all this time later, Fujifilm really hasn't changed the design of the X100. It's gorgeous. It has a style to it that harkens back to old film cameras that I love. Another thing that I love about this camera has to be the build quality. Speaking as someone who owns many of Fuji's lower-end cameras, there is a distinct bump up in terms of how this camera feels when you're using it. With the body being made out of all metal and the aperture ring giving a satisfying click with each rotation, this camera really is something special to hold, even all this time later. In addition to the build quality and the feel of this camera, you are also getting the rangefinder, which in my opinion is probably the best part of this entire camera system. But we'll cover that more in a minute. Outside of the look and feel of this camera, how do the images actually look? Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I tend to lean on the positive end of things. As I mentioned before, this camera is equipped with a fixed 23mm f2, which even at the time of release was not known for being the sharpest thing in the world, and that definitely holds true today as well. I thankfully have been using this camera in broad daylight for the majority of my shooting with it, so I've been able to stop down my lens to f4 for the majority of my shots. And when I stop down to f4, I'm very happy with the results that I'm getting from it. I really enjoy the colors that we're seeing out of this camera. I still shoot in RAW for an extra layer of flexibility, but I will say I don't find myself really editing these photos too much. I more just do a touch-up and then I'm done with them, which I think actually lends itself excellently to this type of camera. When I go out and I take photos with this camera, I'm not wanting to put in an enormous amount of time editing the shots that I get from this. Whether that's from everyday life or from trips, I'm wanting to capture memories with this camera. What I'm really trying to get from the photos from this camera are photos that I can put into Lightroom, do some light editing with to kind of do a couple little touch-ups, and then be ready to share with my friends and family or on social media. And I think for that, this camera does an excellent job. While we're talking about editing, I have to bring up the fact that one negative with this camera is you don't really have the ability to bring back shadows or lost detail in the same way that you'd be able to in a modern camera. Take a look at this image. This is an image that we can see that it's very underexposed, but not very much of it is pitch black. So theoretically, there should be a lot of detail in this image that we can bring back up. But watch, as when we bring it up, it turns to garbage. It does not have that ability to bring back lost detail that I'm used to in those modern cameras. And that's definitely an area where having this be a 12-year-old camera really starts to show its age. That's also an area where this camera seems to struggle in general, low-light photography. We have an f2 aperture on this, which isn't very sharp wide open and isn't even very bright wide open. We also have, again, that 12-year-old camera, so the ISO performance really isn't up to snuff on what we see with a modern camera. A tack-sharp image is not what you're going to be getting from this camera. But if you understand its shortcomings, and like me, you like the look that this camera has with its images, I think you'll be happy with it. At least I am. Next up has to be the best part of this camera paired with the worst part of this camera. The best being the rangefinder. The rangefinder is excellent, paired with the terrible, terrible screen. It is a laggy mess. For anyone who doesn't know, a rangefinder is a sort of viewfinder which allows you to see straight through it. Unlike a traditional DSLR, which bounces you off of a mirror so you're actually seeing directly through the lens, this shows you straight through the camera and it gives you a little white frame for where your actual photo is going to be. I honestly think that that being here saves this camera, and I'm not exaggerating. Being able to see through this rangefinder and see into the actual world with no kind of lag is outstanding, especially when compared to the outdated screen. As I mentioned before, this is a 2.8-inch screen. It does not articulate, it has poor colors, and most importantly, it lags. It lags really bad. And if the normal lag wasn't bad enough, when you half-press the shutter, it freezes up entirely for an entire second or so. It's really rough to use. On any other camera, that screen would be a deal breaker, but because of this excellent rangefinder, if you treat the screen more as a fallback rather than a primary method of control, I think it's actually okay. Another thing that I will mention since we're talking about the screen is that there is an electronic viewfinder on this that you can flip on with this switch right here. Now, don't use this because it's not very good. It has all of the same problems of the actual screen and takes away what I consider to be the best part of this camera. I will say that after you take a picture, it will pop up. At least, that's how I have it set up right now. And I enjoy that. It lets you see the image that you just took and kind of make sure that it's exposed right and, nothing crazy's going on with that. So I appreciate that part of it at least. Before we get to my final thoughts on this camera, there are a few quirks that I wanted to mention that I didn't think fit very well into one of the other sections. The first is the autofocus. It's slow. It's not atrocious, and I haven't had any real problems with it in my time. But if it's something that you're hoping to use for fast-paced street photography, it is something to keep in mind. Another thing that's strange to me is the control knob on the back. You can use it to adjust the aperture in smaller increments than you can do on the lens, and you can also press it in to zoom in for focus. I'm just confused on why they didn't make this a dial. I would have much preferred a dial that I could use to, say, set my ISO or customize in some way. And for the record, in later editions of this camera, that's exactly what they did. This camera also has a leaf shutter, meaning that the shutter mechanism is in the actual lens. It is not in the physical body of the camera. Speaking of the lens also comes with an ND filter that you can turn on inside the camera, which can come in really handy. Lastly, this camera does have 720p video. Don't use it. I don't feel like I need to explain myself on this. Don't use this for video. It